ABC. This is my month in 10 records for November. And yeah, I know it's nearly the end of December, but my first pick, a record that pretty much sums up my month, will give you an idea of why it's been so long since I've been here. Painkiller by Judas Priest. I've been taking a lot of these. Lots of problems with slip discs this past couple of months, so this seems appropriate. This is a great record. It was a real comeback for Judas Priest after the disappointment of Ram It Down, where they did a horrible cover of Johnny B. Good. No one should ever cover Johnny B. Good, especially a band like Judas Priest. It's a really appalling attempt at the song, and that particular album was just covered in drum machines as well, because Dave Holland just wasn't up to the job of drumming. But they got Scott Travis on board for this record. He's with them still. Fantastic drummer. Not the best Priest I've ever had. That honour would probably go to Les Binks, who had subtlety as well as speed and power. But this is a great album. The band completely reinvented themselves. The title track is one of heavy metal's all-time classics. And Priest obviously recognised the threat to their superiority from bands like Slayer and Metallica and Megadeth, and gave as good as they got on this album. Saw a few gigs in November. One of the highlights was seeing Squeeze at the Waterside Theatre in Aylesbury. I'd never seen Squeeze before. I'd seen Glenn Tilbrook live doing a kind of solo acoustic thing at a festival many years ago. Always loved the band, ever since the late 70s, early 80s, when their singles seemed to be in the chart every week. And my God, did they exceed my expectations. What a great live band. They have not lost it one little bit over the years. This is one of their more recent albums. This came out in 2017. I say recent, 7 years old, but they played all the stuff you'd expect. Cool for Cats, labelled with Love, Up the Junction, Black Coffee in Bed, all the rest of it. But they also played new material, which I wasn't familiar with, and I didn't know this album. I bought it since seeing them. And I particularly remember the track Departure Lounge and thinking what a great track that was. It starts off with a sort of the bells of an airport tannoy sort of a sound going on, but it's actually about an old man waiting to die. You always know with Squeeze that you're going to get lyrics which go a little bit deeper. Like track Final Score on here, which is about the coach of a kids' football team being a paedophile. So cheery stuff, but that's what Squeeze were always about, really. There's always that kind of, down sort of element to their lyrical content. I think they fall into the power pop genre. Some people disagree. Had this conversation with a friend I went to the gig with. We both decided, yeah, they definitely qualify as power pop. To me, they are almost the South London Beatles, or certainly Difford and Tilbrook are the South London Lennon McCartney. Great songwriters, hugely underrated. I was knocked out by how good a guitar player Glenn Tilbrook is. I mean, he really ripped it up live. So, been enjoying this album a lot, and a lot of their back catalogue, to be honest. And live, the other highlight of November was definitely seeing Rosalie Cunningham again. I've seen her many times and her former band Person. They never disappoint. The only thing that's disappointing is how small the crowds are that she seems to draw and the venues that she's forced to play. I saw her at the Lexington in King's Cross, which is basically the upstairs room of a pub. And although it's great to see a band of this quality up close, it is disappointing to see that someone with her talent still isn't drawing bigger crowds. But perhaps that'll change. This is her most recent album, came out this year, To Shoot Another Day. Lovely sleeve image there. And this was direct from her website, and it's this kind of smoky purple vinyl, which is really nice. And more importantly, it plays very well. This has had mixed reviews. Actually, on the whole, they've been pretty good. But I remember seeing Pete Pardo on his Sea of Tranquility channel being a bit confused by this album. Obviously not getting it because it just wasn't an out-and-out hard rock album. But that's not really what she's about. She's always been as much about prog and psychedelia as she is hard rock. The title track, To Shoot Another Day, is her stab at a James Bond theme and really works. Timothy Martin's Conditioning School, and sure, that's great titles for her songs. That one is, it seems to be built pretty much around the Eleanor Rigby riff, and she makes no secret of her love of the Beatles. Elsewhere, Heavy Pencil is, it's got a lot of flute and fuzz bass. It's kind of funky. It's a little bit like Italian library music in places, which again, I think that's perhaps why Pete Pardo didn't like it. The influences are too diverse for his taste, perhaps. There's lots of brooding Hammond organ on here. She does have a great band around her, although I think her recording band isn't the same as her live band, but her live band is particularly good. The Smut Peddler, I seem to remember, is an instrumental, and a really good one at that. In the Shade of the Shadows is a kind of a jazzy, smoky, swaggering number with sax and a real sort of 30s Berlin sort of nightclub feel to it. And then Spook Racket is all 70s fuzz guitar and that sort of glitter band stomp. So all themes that she returns to. There's always those kind of psychedelic, glam, prog, hard rock elements to her music. And this is a great album. It's a grower as well. So this is an artist I was quite familiar with. Got a couple of his albums, but this was a bit of a departure. Probably best known for his Primrose Green album. It's Riley Walker. And the Primrose Green album was very much in the style of John Martin, almost too close to John Martin's style to be considered truly original, but still very enjoyable. And this album, I'm getting an awful lot of shadow on here. I've got all sorts of weird lighting going on, but you're just going to have to live with it, I'm afraid. So Riley Walker's The Lillywhite Sessions. And this is actually, quite bizarrely, it's a double album where he covers an entire unreleased Dave Matthews Band album. I must admit, I've barely heard the Dave Matthews Band. I'm vaguely aware of their music. I know they're massive in the States. They're probably quite big in the UK as well, but they're just one of those bands that's passed me by. And they're considered a little bit too middle of the road for most people. Now, the Dave Matthews album is unreleased. I think you can pick up a sort of bootleg sort of CDR of it or something if you really want to hear it. But Riley Walker has obviously heard it. He grew up, because he's a young guy, he grew up listening to Dave Matthews Band. And even though his music has completely departed that style, he decided to cover Dave Matthews on this album. This is a revelation. It's kind of, it's jazz, it's Americana, it's noise, it's atmospheric. It's a really interesting and challenging album. If that's what Dave Matthews Band are like, I'm surprised they're so, I don't know, scorned by a lot of music lovers. Or perhaps Riley Walker's just interpreted it in a totally different way, but this is a fantastic album. I paid £5 for this double album at my local record fair. And it's superb. Excuse me, it is superb. It's going to get a lot of play, that's for sure. A real interesting and challenging record. Now, when I saw that this was being released, I had to put it on pre-order. Long been an album that I absolutely love. Had it on CD for many years, and it's Black Sabbath's Cross Purposes. And this is sort of the much maligned Tony Martin era of Black Sabbath. Everyone loves Ozzy Osbourne's Sabbath albums. People have a great love for the Dio era, but the Tony Martin era just completely gets snubbed by a lot of people. And to me, that's just ridiculous. This is a brilliant album. Absolutely love it. I mean, it's very much in the style of the Ronnie Dio era. Tony Martin has that kind of a voice. He's a great talent. He never looks the coolest or had the most charisma, perhaps, or perhaps I'm being unfair to him. I never did see that particular lineup live, but this record is just so good. This re-release comes on crystal clear vinyl, which is very nice. Plays very, very well. It's got tracks like Cross the Thorns on, which are very much in that Dio era Sabbath kind of vein. Really fantastic stuff. I mean, Tony Martin is superb on this record. Other highlights are Virtual Death, which, if what you want is heavy, heavy Sabbath, that is just such a heavy doomy plodder of a track. Proper Sabbath. Vocally, particularly when Tony Martin's vocals are double tracked, it reminds me of Alice in Chains a bit as well, which is never a bad thing. You've got the ever reliable Bobby Rondinelli on drums here, who to me is a better drummer than Vinny Appice, who crops up on a lot of Black Sabbath's albums. So I enjoy hearing him on this. And on here you've got the subtlety that you had with early Sabbath. I know nobody ever thinks subtlety when they think of Sabbath, but Sabbath were always about Tony Iommi's kind of gentle acoustic guitar sort of interludes and choirs, and they were always far more diverse in their musical palette than they're given credit for. And this is the same. The track Dying for Love, it almost has a kind of Gary Moore Parisian Walkways style guitar intro. Absolutely beautiful. And then it sort of segues into this almost Dio era rainbow ballad. Absolutely beautiful. I can't recommend this album highly enough. So Cross Purposes by Black Sabbath, definitely one to check out. Now, despite having bought a ton of records this past couple of months, particularly November with the Kempton Record Fair, and I'm not featuring anything from the record fair in this video because I've covered that pretty extensively. Despite that, I do find time to pull stuff off the shelves and rediscover them. One album I've been listening to a lot is this album by Stone Fury, which is called Burns Like a Star. This is a fantastic hard rock record. If you like commercial but powerful hard rock in the vein of, I don't know, Dokken, Scorpions, and Kingdom Come, you'll definitely enjoy this. And Kingdom Come in particular because it features this guy, Lenny Wolf, who went on 4 years after this to release Kingdom Come's debut album. Now, they got a lot of stick, particularly from the metal press in the UK, for sounding like Led Zeppelin, but they weren't so derivative as to be dismissed like that. I always thought they were fairly hard done by. And the fact was, they were fantastic musicians, wrote great songs, and Lenny Wolf just has an incredible voice. And Kingdom Come with no fluke, because this is a fantastic album. And what you need to listen to, second track on the first side, I Hate to Sleep Alone, which just has one of the best riffs I've ever heard. I love that track, absolutely adore that track. So check that one out. And if that doesn't do it for you, perhaps try Burns Like a Star, which has a really nice acoustic guitar, sort of phased acoustic guitar intro to it. A really special album this is. And like I say, I Hate to Sleep Alone is a killer riff. So check that one out. Now, being a music lover is about a constant reappraisal of music. Music that you may have dismissed when you first heard it can sometimes suddenly strike a chord with you. Sometimes it takes a while for that to happen. And this is a band that, when I was a kid at school, you're either a metalhead like I was, or you're into bands like Echo and the Bunnymen and the Smiths and the Cure. And a lot of these bands I've since grown to love, but there was definitely this tribal thing going on. And one band I could never get into was U2. Now, my wife is not a fan of this band, And she has often said that she hates music with a message unless that message is rock and roll all night and party every day. I don't mind music with a message, but I always thought U2 just were a bit too pompous and po-faced and earnest. But on that family trip to Dublin that we took in October, I think it was, we went to the Irish Rock Museum, and U2, of course, featured heavily. And it just got me thinking, I need to listen to these guys again. So I picked up this album, again at my local record fair. And it's got the well-known songs, the classics, if you like, Sunday Bloody Sunday and New Year's Day on here. And I listened to it and I quite enjoyed them. And the rest of the album I quite enjoyed as well. And I've not listened to this a ton, but I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to continue listening to it because I can kind of separate myself from my prejudices of my teenage years and just enjoy it for what it is, which is a really great album by a band who deserve the success they've had. So that's me kind of handing the olive branch to you too. I'm sure they'll be delighted to know that I finally caved in. But yeah, I may even find myself buying some more U2 albums in the near future. Yeah, so Better Late Than Never. This is a record that I've been wanting it for years. I've had their debut album for, 35, 40 years. Could never find a reasonably priced copy of this. And even though it was on my want list, it wasn't something I was absolutely gagging to get. But I saw it at the right price recently, and I'm very pleased to finally have the second New York Dolls album. And an original copy at that. Great sleeve. I mean, that would make you want to see this band live. I always thought it was funny when on the old grey whistle test, Whispering Bob Harris was so dismissive of New York Dolls. I don't know what they did to him to upset him so much, but this is absolutely not mock rock. This is a great band, and this is a really good album. It pretty much continues where the first album left off. I mean, tracks like Babylon and Who Are the Mystery Girls, they could have been off the first album, to be honest. Great stuff, but they're not one-trick ponies. Stranded in the Jungle has all these kind of, jungle drums and chimp noises on it, and then it kind of morphs into this 50s, 60s rock and roll pastiche with boogie-woogie piano, which should really turn me off. But it works because it's New York Dolls, it's so tongue-in-cheek. And they were just such a party band. There's going to be a Showdown is a really good track. That's kind of almost like a 60s girl group thing. It's kind of got a real leader of the pack vibe to it. Absolutely fantastic. And then the final track, Human Being, to be honest, that could almost be Status Quo. Status Quo if they wore PVC instead of denim, of course, but a really good track and a great album. I'm so pleased to finally have a copy of this. Oh, how I love a blind buy. There's nothing more satisfying than picking something up on a whim and finding that it's really, really good. And this is no exception. I actually bought 2 albums by this band. Now that's really putting your trust in a blind buy. They were 10 quid each. They were at my local record fair again, still in the shrink, look, barely played. Band's Garcia Peoples. And this is One Step Behind. And as you might infer from the band name, there's a little bit of a Grateful Dead influence on here, in as much as there's this real psychedelic jam band feel to a lot of the material. But there's more to them than that. Let me just show you the vinyl before we go any further, because it's on this quite fetching sort of custard yellow. Seem to have got a lot of coloured vinyl this past month. So what does it sound like? Well, like I say, Grateful Dead are definitely in the mix. There are only 2 tracks on this album, but it doesn't get boring. Sometimes when you've only got 2 tracks, if a band hasn't got the musical chops, it can drag on a bit, but that's not the case here. The first track, which is called One Step Behind, title track. Starts with a synth drone, there's echoing sax on here, hypnotic guitar patterns. It is very, very trippy. And then about halfway through, I mean, they don't hurry to progress the track, they just get you into this hypnotic state. About halfway through, you get the drums come in, more guitar, riffs and solos. Then the drums become really motoric, you get that krautrock element creeping in. And then the vocals come in, and they have this kind of stoned, relaxed feel to them, very much like the Beta Band. If you like the Beta Band, you are gonna like this band, that's for sure. So this is krautrock, it is space rock, it's a jam band and very Grateful Dead influenced. Now the first track is so long, it actually continues on to the B-side. And when the second track comes in, it's quite different. It's dreamy rural rock, and it has haunting flute and piano on it, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I can thoroughly recommend this album, this band. You know, generally, I've only heard the 2 albums by them. The other album, I'll review it another time. It's not exactly the same as this, but you know, there are similar elements to it. But out of the 2, this has been my favourite. Absolutely love this. So check them out. And the artwork is just superb, and it's superb on all of their records as well. So there you go, Garcia Peoples, Blind Buy and a real winner. Now my bargain of the month, and this was a real bargain. I'm amazed nobody else snapped it up before me. I got this on Vinted, and I paid just £5 for this. And perhaps the condition of the sleeve put some people off. Perhaps people didn't know what it was, but I did. And I picked up Deep Feelings album, and this sleeve is seriously fragile, what is left of it. I think this is one of those records that's been used as a scratching post by a cat, because it is really quite tatty. What would you do with this? Would you tape it up? Give me advice. I mean, it is in a state where it is just going to fall into 2 before too long, so I need to do something about it. But I will never let a tatty sleeve put me off buying a rare record. And this is a rare record. I mean, I paid £5 for it. I think it goes for upwards of 85, 90, 100 quid a lot of the time. So very pleased to have that. It's on the DJM record label. And this is, I don't know whether you can tell, it's an absolutely pristine copy. So apart from being a cat scratching post, this has obviously been extremely well treated in its time. So what is this like? It is either loved or derided, sort of in equal measure, I guess. It's a bit all over the place, which is always a reason why people will criticise an album, and I can kind of understand that to an extent. But I would sooner that than an album was a complete one-trick pony. It's like a proggy Crosby, Stills and Nash, or a proggy Simon and Garfunkel, I suppose. Mostly it's acoustic with organ, and it reminds me a bit of other prog bands like Capability Brown, because there's great harmonies, or Exception, the Dutch sort of classical prog band, or Cressida. So if you like those bands, chances are you're going to enjoy this. They do a kind of extended 8-minute version of Mason Williams' Classical Gas on here, and they bring something new to it. I mean, it's a familiar tune, but they do a very good version of it. I really do enjoy that. And that will give you a feel for what the rest of the album is like. There are sort of countryish elements, but never so jarring that you feel like stylistically it's out of place. I mean, Country Air has pedal steel in it, but it's kind of a pedal steel Crosby, Stills and Nash. Really interesting track. I think this is a beautiful album. And there is one track on it which will probably appeal to the real sort of heavy psych heads, and that's a cover of Lucille, which is surprisingly heavy and features tons of fuzzy electric guitar. So that is definitely one to check out. If you're going to only listen to one track, if you think this is going to be too lightweight for you, that might be the track to change your mind. But Deep Feeling, yeah, the sleeve is knackered, but £5 for a rare record like this, where else are you going to find a copy for that price? So that's it. That's my month way back in November in 10 records. Hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to jump on board the vinyl tag at some point and probably do a rundown of some of my favourite pickups of the year. And I think I'm just about in time to say Happy Christmas, have a great New Year, and I will see you on the other side. Take care. Bye for now.